Chuck?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, we just got the mic figured out, and I forgot my collar. I'm like fully priested right now.
Nice. Here we are. We're finally here. Let's do it. Let's do it. Hello and welcome to Masters of Divinity. We are live right now with no viewers, but that's okay because we're trying a different. We're doing video this time. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be exciting and stuff. Hello, Matt Wells and Father Chuck.
What's up?
Hello. It's good to have you guys here right now. We had some technical issues trying to log us all in, but it's okay. We're here now. That's all that matters. And can I say I'm glad that I see you.
It's funny. The way to say that in the Navi language escapes me.
I'm so sad.
But
it occurred to me. Was it
Steve? No. I can't remember the Navi term for ICU. It's very long. But Sivako is like seize the moment. It's like go for it.
Where did you learn that?
From the Flight of Passage ride at Disney. There's also Ignimaya, which is, I believe, the Navi word for the people, which is the name of the Navi.
Okay. All right. That's good. This is going to be a great episode. In case you're not familiar with Avatar, the story's hero is Jake Sully, a former Marine confined to a wheelchair. Bitter and disillusioned, he's still a warrior at heart. All Jake ever wanted was something worth fighting for, and he finds it in the place he least expected, on a distant world. Jake has been recruited to join an expedition to the moon Pandora, which corporate interests are strip mining for a mineral worth $20 million per kilogram on Earth, known as unobtainium. To facilitate their work, the humans use a link system that projects a person's consciousness into a hybrid of humans and Pandora's indigenous humanoids, Navi. Is it Navi or is it Navi? Do you put like a Navi or is it like...
It's Navi because there is an accent between the syllables, so Navi.
Okay. This human Navi hybrid, a full living, breathing body that resembles the Navi but possesses the individual human's thoughts, feelings, and personality, is known as an avatar. In his new avatar form, Jake can once again walk. His mission is to interact with and infiltrate the Navi with the hope of enlisting their help, or at least their acquiescence in mining the ore. A beautiful Navi female, Natiri, saves Jake's life, albeit reluctantly, because even in his avatar body, Jake represents to her the human encroachment on the Navi's unspoiled world. As Jake's relationship with Natiri deepens, along with his respect for the Navi, he faces the ultimate test as he leads an epic conflict that will decide nothing less than the fate of an entire world. Da-na-na-na. That's a James Horner riff, right?
I don't know.
Da-na-na-na.
Sounds about right.
It's the part when the tree falls and you hear the horn.
Oh, right. That's right. You're right.
That's like my favorite part, or one of my favorite parts. So let's get some facts, gentlemen. So like this is written and directed by James Cameron, and this is sort of like a lifelong project of his, something he's been obsessed with like his entire life, apparently, according to him. And it's sort of like a culmination of everything he's fascinated with, which is technology and nature, and how like technology has taken us away from nature and things like that. Sci-fi pulpy novels he grew up with, and just his whole approach to like technology, always developing tech and pushing the envelope with special effects and stuff. The box office for this movie is remarkable. It's currently in the ballpark of $3 billion worldwide.
Nice.
And it's, yeah. What were you gonna say?
I'm saying nice. I said
I
don't know why Matt is like so disillusioned by this. It's not a bad movie.
It's such a bad movie.
Did you watch it?
I did watch it again.
We're
gonna get to it. We're gonna get to it. Oh.
Okay, so I want to talk about this box office because it's like overwhelming. It's the ballpark right now, $3 billion worldwide, which makes it the 5th highest grossing movie of all time after adjusting for inflation. Its first week and made 137 million, and it just kept rising week after week after week for I think like a month straight, which is how which is how you beat Titanic, basically. You can't have that drop off in the first month. And the critical reaction was actually pretty positive. Like I did some research. People are kind of now. But back then, people like Roger Ebert, A.O. Scott, people of Variety, New Yorker, they really liked it. It's getting like 4 stars all across the board. Some people saying like, I haven't felt this way since I saw Star Wars when I was a kid. Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars. It was met with a lot of pretty good reception. But then, as we all kind of know now, and the conversations now is like, it's not really celebrated that much, at least in the public sphere.
Right. It has the odd, and I know we'll probably talk about this, but it has the odd distinction of being this massive movie that never really entered sort of the pop culture zeitgeist.
Right.
In terms of like the way Star Wars did.
Right. Or like many other James Cameron movies like Terminator and
Aliens.
Yeah. So before we get started talking about the movie, I want to know your guys' opinion on James Cameron. So Chuck, why don't you start us? I want to know what you think about James Cameron.
The thing about James Cameron. I really don't know what else to say about the guy. He is nonstop. And he has proven time and time again that one should never bet against James Cameron. He, in terms of every movie he makes, they are huge, they are iconic. Of course, Terminator is just unbelievable as a movie. Terminator 2, enormous. And he had, of course, the distinction of, for a while, I know this is a matter of debate for some people, but of proving that the sequel can be better than the original. Like I said, I know people debate that about the Terminator and Alien franchises, but for a long time there was that feeling that that Aliens and Terminator 2 were better than their originals. I think now the consensus is more that they're different. They're just very different movies from their originals, and it's not so much that one's better than the other; they're just different.
Yeah, I think he does that on purpose.
Yeah, and then probably. I talking about facts. I deeply love Avatar. I think it has become one of my top favorite movies. But I have a hard time. I mean, I love Aliens just because it's Aliens, but I also really like The Abyss.
Really,
and which to me I think might be James Cameron's best movie.
So
it's interesting.
Why didn't we do The Abyss? There's a good movie. See.
We actually should do The Abyss. That'd be a fun episode too. What strikes me about that, Chuck, is that you think it's his best movie. Is The Abyss? It's kind of like Avatar in a way, and how it's being received and remembered. Because I think at the time, I didn't really do much research on The Abyss, but I think at the time it was kind of underwhelming. Like it was really hyped as he was making, because the whole thing was made underwater. It was the first time they recorded underwater on film or something like that.
They developed specific scuba technology so that they could deliver lines while underwater.
Yeah, exactly. But like today, it's not really like revered. It's not as revered as like Terminator or Aliens.
Right. Which would be an interesting. That'd be an interesting thing to sort of investigate why it is that Terminator 2 and Aliens and Terminator have become these big bombastic, pop culture things. But like Abyss, which to me is just such a good movie, like just a good movie, like a well-made. Because I've always felt that with Abyss, this was something he wanted to make. He wasn't trying for. I just didn't feel like it was a movie he was trying to make for spectacle. Mm-hmm. It's a very thoughtful movie. It's a movie more about ideas than it is about like bombast.
Yeah, and I think and that kind of ties into a theory I have that both with Avatar and The Abyss as to why it didn't really capture that sort of celebration.
Yeah,
but let's go into Matt. I want to know what Matt thinks about James Cameron.
He's good.
Okay.
I mean, come on. I mean, I agree with everything Chuck has said so far. We're gonna disagree so much soon, so let's enjoy the unity that we have in this moment.
Well,
The Abyss is incredible. Terminator, Aliens. I mean, come on, these movies are I mean, they're like our childhood, and yet there's also a fun track record of watching all these franchises that we love and adore be driven into the ground horribly and lost in a sea of useless, meaningless, overpriced special effects and overhyped, lacking storylines. Oh, sorry, we're not on that movie yet. Oh, we'll get there.
Notice that so far none of us have talked about Titanic.
I feel
yeah, that's, I mean,
oh, no,
Titanic's
I'll get there. I was gonna get there actually, but I will say I'm feeling a little intimidated because Chuck and I are in the same room for this episode and have a long car ride ahead of us. And so JP thought, hey, I know it'll be fun. Let's talk about a movie that'll have them both at each other's throat and see how the day goes.
Hey, at least he didn't have us talk about Tron Legacy.
Oh, I feel like this is going to be so much worse. But Titanic, I mean, come on. When Titanic came out, can we all just think back to what that did to our culture and our world when that movie premiered and everybody walked into the theater and left and went back again and left and went back a third time? Like, this is a movie where other people, I mean, we going to see a movie more than once, that is normal for us. But for other people to be like, yeah, man, I saw it 3 times too, was very, very different. And especially when you're talking like a 3.5-hour movie. However, my take on Titanic is, I still say the best way to watch it is if you can track down the old VHS two cassette copy, track down the old 2 cassette one, throw out the first one. All you need is the second one. It starts with the iceberg hitting the boat, and it's just the fun, cool action sequence of the ship sinking and them running to save their lives. So the best way to watch Titanic, go buy the VHS and just get rid of VHS number 1 and watch the second one.
That's good. Thank you, Matt.
Good times.
So my thoughts on James Cameron is that I've always loved James Cameron. He was probably the first filmmaker I learned about, like, outside of Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. And I've always been fascinated by Cameron because his whole approach is that he's a very utilitarian filmmaker. Not utilitarian in the way, like, I'm not saying he's like a workman filmmaker like Brett Ratner or something. Utilitarian in that, like, he's an engineer. His background is in engineering and tech and also art, and so he's able to kind of combine the two. He's like probably the only director I know of his caliber who can, like, he's the kind of director who can take apart a camera and put it back together again. And I think that's fascinating about him, and you can kind of see that in his art. And like in his early work, he's very fascinated with technology. There's a lot of not quite fetishizing of technology, but like he does love to put that on the screen, how things work, how things move. And I think you would think that someone with that sort of approach wouldn't be able to tell like a very engaging or emotional story, but that's quite the opposite. He's very good at kind of hammering out a script that works by using just like knowing where the components go, like how most like engineers probably would approach a script, but yet he can still evoke a lot of emotion.
I mean, we all cried over a converted murderous robot getting sunk into lava. Exactly.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. I mean,
sorry, I just got it. One of the best lines in any sci-fi franchise and is Ellen Ripley, "Get away from her, you bitch."
Hell yeah.
Like communicating so much passion and like motherly. Sorry, I had to acknowledge that.
No, it's great. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, the fact that this techie engineer made Titanic, a movie that teenage girls went to see every day that it was in theaters over and over and over again. I think that's incredible. I think that should make him go down in history as one of our greatest filmmakers.
Yeah.
So like, I love James Cameron. Like, you'll never get any complaints from me whatsoever. I mean, I know there are a lot of stories where he's like where he at least used to be kind of a dick, like total dictator on set and like being really rude and mean to people. He's acknowledged that he was like that, but he's like, he's not really like that anymore, apparently, which I hope that's true. But I love him. And, when this movie is coming out, I was super stoked. I totally bought into the idea that it's going to be the next Star Wars, that's going to be the game changer it is. So let's talk about Avatar. So I want to hear from Chuck first. Chuck, what are your thoughts? Give me your thoughts on Avatar.
Okay, so I saw Avatar, I believe, opening night, and I was, and it was, I know this is a movie that you and I had talked about over the years, and I was aware of it for a long time with James Cameron wanting to make it, and I just kept expecting it to be made, and it just kept, not getting off the ground. But I was just like the idea of because I remember first reading about the plot about it as like a war being conducted on another planet by way of people like transporting their minds into other bodies. And I thought that was such a cool idea. And James Cameron, like who's going to go against James Cameron? And then it was 3D, and I was really interested in the fact that he was really trying to explore 3D as not as a gimmick, like not, I mean, it's a gimmick, but not a gimmick like say in like, what is it? Friday the 13th part 3D,
yeah,
where
he's
like
not throwing balls at your face, tennis balls at your face, like
right. That he was exploring the use of 3D for depth, and that was the thing that struck me about it, is that it was really more about how the depth of the screen sticks in rather than stuff coming out at you. Right. I mean, that the fact that the first shot, like one of the first shots of the movie, is like a little drop of like water focused on the screen. And then like the way it pans and you see that Jake is in the like cryo tube and it's floating in front of him. Like, I just think that actually it's two water droplets that merge together because it's foreshadowing. But yeah, so I went and saw it, blown away by just the immersiveness of it in terms of special effects. Felt the story was a little weak and a little basic, and did not necessarily feel that Sam Worthington was a very charismatic or compelling lead. And then the hype around it, and like terms of its special effects and all of that, it just sort of faded from my memory. And I just remembered it as a very pretty but boring movie. And I never saw it again in theaters. And I did catch it. A friend of Kana's. We were staying at a friend's house in Pittsburgh, in Philadelphia, and he had just bought like this really high end huge plasma TV, and so he was watching Avatar on it. And I was really surprised at what it looked like on that TV screen, because I had only ever seen it in 3D in theaters, and I always thought that, well, there's no point in watching it if you can't see it in 3D. And as an aside, I think that's a factor into why it hasn't grown as much as in the fan as it could have, because I think it was so tied to the movie theater experience. I
think so too. I think I read some kind of retrospective criticism on it. A lot of people are complaining about sort of his kind of like neutral style filmmaking and use of like a lot of like negative space. But it's like, I think that's definitely intentional, because the visuals were supposed to pop on their own. Right.
But I think it's a franchise or film and franchise now that yields itself to immersiveness. And I'll get to that in a moment, because like I said, I was bored with the movie when I first saw it, or after seeing it. It sort of faded away, and I sort of bought into the idea of like, oh, this is okay, cool. He spent a lot of money, but it just never really connected and just wasn't that great of a thing. But then I went to, and then I found out they were opening they're opening a Pandora at Animal Kingdom in Orlando. And I rolled my eyes at that. I thought, there's no way that this is going to be like, why are you spending so much money on this? Like with this franchise. And I mean, it's been funny to read about learning that Disney was super nervous about it, because they signed on to build that when they expected sequels to have been in theaters. And James Cameron's famous for delaying his movies. And so Disney was super nervous about it. But then we went, and I went on all the rides, and it just really reinvigorated my interest in Avatar. And I found myself borderline obsessed with it. And again, because it's an immersive thing. Like, I can go visit Pandora, I can go ride Flight of Passage, which really allows you to feel like you're in that world. And so I bought like this like collector's edition Blu-ray version of it, and I've watched it several times since then. My kids have watched bits of it with me. They really like it. They have little toy banshees and stuff and are fascinated by it. And I've come around and realized I think it's a better movie than I remembered. The plot is pretty generic, but it's a similar plot in some ways to like Dances with Wolves or The Last of the Mohicans or The Last Samurai. People criticize as sort of like white guy goes native and saves the natives, which I don't. That's an oversimplification for me on that movie, but I see that, and even James Cameron himself has said like he was totally trying to rip off Pocahontas because he said he started getting the ideas for this movie after seeing Disney's Pocahontas. So he himself has admitted that he wasn't trying to tell some new story. He was trying to tell an old story in a new way. And so knowing that, I've come to appreciate the movie a lot more. And especially for the world building. Just so much work went into it. I mean, I made a comment on an article a little way back about it was on Birth Movies Death. Somebody made a comment about a moon orbiting Pandora, and I did one of those actually replies where it was like, actually, Pandora itself is a moon. It can't have moons orbiting it because it
orbits a gas giant.
Yeah, it orbits Polyphemus, the gas giant, and our Polyphorus. I think that's it.
Oh yes, look to me. I know your answer.
So, this person replied, and they were like, "Oh, that's right. I forgot that they did that. I wonder why that was." And this other person, who's clearly like a diehard fan, gave this whole like thing about how James Cameron. He'd read somewhere that James Cameron had done all this research in how at the time, the most likely way that we were going to find a planet that could sustain life was it orbiting a gas giant. And he just did this whole like in depth, and it proved that James Cameron just did so much research because he wanted it to have some factual, like rooted in some kind of factuality around this. And so they had this idea of this gas giant in the Alpha Centauri system that has a moon orbiting it that can sustain life. And that's his thing. And so that, and then invented a whole language for it, invented a whole ton of animals and, the flora and fauna of Pandora is beautiful. And the fact that it's bioluminescent adds a whole other layer of interest to the storyline, not to the storyline, but to the film itself, into this. So I think it's just a beautiful movie in terms of what you're looking at on the screen. I will give Matt this. The storyline is weak. It's pretty pedestrian and basic, but I think all the stuff surrounding it makes up for that for the boring storyline. I mean, let's be honest. A New Hope is a boring storyline. I just started watching Star Wars again. It's a rescue the princess storyline, pretty much.
Well, you're right, but I think that Star Wars has a lot of things going for it that I think James Cameron kind of skipped out on and overlooked. I don't want to say overlooked because I don't think he did it on purpose. I do think he did it on purpose. I think that there is a reason why, but I'll get into my thoughts later. I want to know what Matt thinks.
I don't want to talk about it.
Matt did not like it.
I have not been to Pandora at Disney yet. I will say that I'm very excited about. And I feel like maybe the money wasted on this movie should just be spent on continuing to better improve a theme park, because I think the world immersion is all he was thinking about. And I think he forgot about making a movie that I care about. Because this storyline, you say it's basic, but this storyline sucks. It's just so like, oh, come on. You like you said, he's one of our greatest filmmakers that an engineer can make these movies. Then there's this movie that I'm like, yeah, that's what I would expect an engineer to make. Like, it shows off what he can do, but has nothing to it that, I mean, the characters are awful. I'm sorry, they're awful. Sam Worthington, that's his name, right?
Yeah. He's Jake's
horrible character. He's boring. He's not compelling. His only motivation is, I woke up and they told me to be here because my brother died, but they don't even explore the relationship with his brother. I'm not interested in this guy. They don't make you really feel for, I mean, they put him in a wheelchair, which is such a desperate cry for care about this man. He can't even walk. He was obviously hurt in war. But then they don't even make him care about it. He's kind of like, yeah, it'd be great to have my legs, but whatever, and kind of moves on. And then it's thrown back in as a cheap, hey, man, if you spy for us and tell us what's going on, we'll get your legs back. And he's like, all right, but doesn't really care about that. Like, it's such an afterthought. The main villain is a poor man's Colonel Guile.
Colonel Quaritch is the best part of this movie.
He is a poor man's Colonel Guile.
I think he's actually great.
He's like, if Colonel Guile was not played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, this is what it looks like.
He keeps going out to the environment, holding his breath, and fights. I think that's pretty awesome.
It's not awesome. It's stupidity. Who would run out and hold their breath to go fight people? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And this is not a planet, for the record, that can sustain life in any way, shape, or form. Because if you open the door, you're all dead, unless you put your scuba gear on to go outside. So it's like living under the ocean. And I was like, and the immersion part of it, I was not immersed. The world building. I remember when I saw it in theaters, I was kind of underwhelmed because the hype. I blame the hype for in the theater. I went opening night, went and saw it. I was kind of like, I mean, it was cool looking, but whatever. Then I watched it on a TV, and I agree with you. Kind of, because you say you don't really think it's this way, but I disagree in the sense that I watched it on a TV that is no longer 3D and really didn't care anymore. I think it's a beautiful concept with the, like you said, the bioluminescence is probably one of the like coolest parts when it lights up. It's like, oh, that's pretty. But I honestly feel like like I said, I would love to go to Disney and do the ride and see what it's like to interact with this world, because that's what the movie was supposed to be, is make you feel like you're interacting with this world. And instead, I feel like I'm in a pet store looking into a saltwater aquarium, and I can't interact with the boring fish swimming around. I just get to point at them and go, oh, look, colors. And I was not a fan. There's so much potential. And I told JP this separately, so he can attest to this. I'm actually super excited about seeing a sequel. I'll admit that, because I feel like he was so focused on trying to impress us with his world building that he kind of forgot, oh yeah, I need to make a movie too. And I'm now curious that the world has been built to see what he'll do with it.
Right.
That I'm curious in. But as far as this one as a movie, I can't wait to see the theme park. I can live happy if I never see the movie again. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And don't get me started. I can't get started on this one, but I got to make a comment. But then we got to move on. I can't do it, JP. I can't talk about it.
Okay.
But the portrayal of women in it pissed me off horribly. It like really made me mad. To take Sigourney Weaver, who is an incredible actress, and turn it down to, let's make her look like a teenager in cutoffs and a high-waisted shirt, and comment on that immediately, so that the guy's like, oh, wow, is that? And she's like, well, what did you expect? I just didn't like it. It's like a teenage boy's concept of what Sigourney Weaver should be, instead of it's Sigourney Weaver. Like, let Sigourney Weaver be Sigourney Weaver. It made me angry. It did.
I mean, I think for me, it shows that there is an element of using the avatars as a way to show off a side of yourself that you feel is missing, and it allows her to feel young and even sexy again, maybe.
And I can see that, and I agree partially, but I also was bothered by. I couldn't help but notice how much of the design of the characters is to draw attention to their bodies, and the female character.
That's calling out the male gazy aspect.
The female character, who is arguably the best part of this movie, is the main female, Neytiri. I always mess up her name. Thank you, Neytiri. And yet so much was spent on trying to make your eye drawn to her body that I didn't even get to appreciate the performance that was being done, because it's all about how little can we put them in? And with the females, it's played up as, ooh, look at them. And then with the guys, it's played up as a joke where he literally is picking a wedgie when he walks onto screen. Nice close up of him picking a wedgie. So it's like, oh, look, the guys have to wear a loincloth. And then it's like, oh, look, the women are wearing loincloths. And it's annoying.
No.
It's annoying.
I mean, Cameron himself said that there are stories around him when they would come up with designs for Neytiri, he would walk around to a lot of the men and say, like, do you think she's hot or not? Because he felt that her attractiveness
and
was
ladies
necessary.
and gentlemen, enough said. Have a good day. No, I'm just kidding.
But he said he felt that her attractiveness was necessary to sell the love story aspect of the movie.
But his concept of attractiveness is what he went for, and that makes me mad.
Well, and there's also, and it's not just Neytiri. He I mean, it's kind of clear that he's trying to make them all of the Na'vi like desirable,
right?
Because it's a romance. So
right, it's a romance, but it's also I think it's that subversive piece too, and some I'm sure we could, in terms of like racial theory, in anthropology, they could talk about how the idea that a lot of white people have had this history of looking at indigenous peoples as sort of, superior and sort of fetishize them. Right. And I could see where you could take that with this movie. But at the same time, these are aliens, not actual native peoples on Earth. So I think there's got to be a little bit of
that's like a totally different episode where we could talk about the nativism and stuff.
Right.
And I will say, I do want to stress the fact that I am waiting and curious for the sequel. I'm hopeful, and I'm super excited to go visit like the Disney park. I want to see this world and interact with this world. That I want to do. But what my biggest gripe against the movie is that's what I wanted to do when I walked into the theater. When it opened and they're like, there's this movie that's going to change the way we see everything. It's experimenting with new film techniques and new graphics and things that have never been done. I wanted to walk in and interact with this world. And instead, I felt like such an outsider that wasn't allowed to care about it. And then the park opens and I'm like, all right, there it is. Now here's the chance to feel what I wanted to when I walked into that theater. And we'll see when the sequel comes out if now you've got this world built, let's see what you can do with it. Because let me put it in this terms. Cameron wanted to create this interactive, amazing planet, that's something that's never been done, a fully immersive thing. He wanted a history to go with it, a culture, a people. Basically, he was doing a Tolkien. Tolkien wanted to create a language, wanted to make a fully immersive world, wanted to fill it with people, fill it with characters, a history, a background. But read the Silmarillion or the Lord of the Rings and compare that to what James Cameron released and said, this is my vision. But you created and spent all this time imagining this world and this culture and these people. How could you release it without then giving it the time for a story that was fitting, that it deserved? Because I feel like you threw it out there and missed it by not having the key component, which is the story that makes us care.
Well, I think
about your planet.
Well, I think you're onto something a little bit too, Matt, because you're talking about the sequels being an exciting prospect. Because I think you're right in the world building, but if you remember when Tolkien, the Silmarillion was one of the last books that Tolkien ever released.
I know,
it was written before anything else he had done. The first book we ever got in Middle Earth was The Hobbit,
right? But that's
which is a small story,
and that's my point. Is he focused on a story that totally drew people into his world without dumping the history and everything on you off the start. So by the time you got to the Silmarillion, you cared about his world so much that to read it from the creation account on was amazing, because these are people, characters, a world I want to be a part of, and now I got the history. And I feel like that's what Cameron was missing here, is the small story. Where's the thing that makes me care about this world before you try and like dump on me what it is and how it works? And like Star Wars, sorry, last thing though, but that's Star Wars, A New Hope. Simple, to the point story that draws us into characters to where we're like, I care about this guy. I care about his journey. I care about the people he's interacting with. I've got to see what happens to them because I want to make sure they're okay. And then the next movie opens it up to this universal aspect of this empire that's taking everything over, and how we're fighting them and the rebels, and like he missed the small. He should have started with the story that made us care. It's Terminator. It's aliens. Aliens start with one alien, then lead us to the world of how they work. It's Terminator. Give us the bad robot, then lead us to the concept of sending more back. Like it's something he's done before. He just JP's like, stop talking.
Well, I want to get into my thoughts because I don't want to run out of time.
Oh, nobody cares about your thoughts.
But before I launch into my thoughts, can I just say, like, I hope that in the Avatar sequel, apparently it's supposed to be about like Jake and Neytiri's kids, or at least kids of the tribe. I hope there's a scene where Jake is telling his kids how he and his mom met. And when he finishes the story, one kid's like, I don't know, Dad, the story is a little contrived and kind of weak. And then another kid's like, no, but I like the spectacle about it. It was pretty cool. Really good world building. Another kid's like, yeah, but you know, you can't just count on spectacle. And another kid's, yeah, man, you're just gatekeeping. And Jake's like, how come everyone says this when I tell our love story? I don't get it. Anyway, that's my bit. So my thoughts on Avatar. It's really funny because like I'm right in the middle of the two of you when it comes to this movie.
You are literally the moderator. You're the mediator.
You may have to get someone to call in to even it out. I don't know. Is Father Fun available? So when I initially saw it, I thought I had a good time in the theater. I thought it was fun. It was the first time I ever spent $100 to actually see a movie. Because it was an IMAX and 3D and this really fancy theater, and it was me and my nephew, and you know, snacks also. But I remember this was like the first time I ever paid like a ton of money to see a movie. And overall, I thought it was fun. I thought it was good. But as I kind of like started to move away from it, and you know, the less time I spent watching and more time I spent thinking about it, I kind of liked it less. And I think I revisited a few times between now and then. Not really like sit down just to watch, but just kind of have it like playing, just to ignore. And so like watching it for this episode was like the first time I ever just sat down to watch it with a bit of a critical eye and as an audience member again. And I had to say that I feel like I've kind of, I'm not going to say I figured out because I think a lot of people agree with me on this because a lot of people have made the same statements, but I could kind of see why it didn't like grab hold of audiences' imaginations for years and years and isn't celebrated like those other movies we talk about. But before I get to that, I'll just say my thoughts on it. I think that he did exactly what James Cameron did, which is like he knew what story to tell. He knew the right kind of story to tell and how to tell it. He put all the components in place that tell the story that gets it from A to B to C. He knew what kind of characters had to be in, and you know, he put most of his effort and a ton of other people's effort, if we're being honest, like for 5 years, developing the world, developing the technology to tell this story. And I think that really pays off immensely. It really is a beautiful, fascinating world. I love going to Pandora. I love seeing the sights. I love the animals. I love the aliens. I love the Na'vi. I think the conflict between the humans and the indigenous people is interesting. I like the message. It is a little on the nose, but I agree with it. And I think it's actually pretty cool that he approached it. I'm bonkers, straight up bonkers over the ideas about the planet like being sentient. And like I think AWA is a really cool idea. And it's actually like I found it to be very moving. Like the scene where Sigourney Weaver's character is dying, and they take her to hopefully transfer it into her avatar through AWA, and like the entire tribe comes together and is praying to it and trying and like all working together to make it happen. I thought that was a really beautiful thing. It's a really beautiful image and it's a really beautiful moment. And even though she's not transferred to Avatar, she's with AWA. I thought that was really beautiful. But it's also it's kind of funny because it's sort of like. I don't know what you guys, if you guys know anything about James Cameron and sort of like his relationship with religion, which is it's kind of non-existent. Right. But like he would come up with a mythology that's like God is real. He's not this amorphous thing. He's right there, and you can go talk to it.
Right.
And if you die, you can plug yourself into it, and that's how you die. None of this faith thing. So I thought that's kind of funny. But big but here. Well, I'll keep talking about things I like. I think that the part that I like the most is I think the last act is a blast.
Oh yeah.
If you could say anything about James Cameron, we won't talk about world building or characterization or writing. The dude can make an action scene, and
he strapped bombs to a space shuttle.
Yeah. The dude can direct an action scene, and he's always been able to, and he always will. That's like the one thing he will always be able to do and always will be able to satisfy people with. And so that the whole last battle is like, it's riveting. It's amazing. It's a ton of fun. And a lot of jumping. I noticed that. That's kind of interesting. However,
and really quick, can we also talk about the fact that the amp suits have giant knives is amazing.
See, I like that too. See, this is a little nerd thing about me. I like it when giant robots don't have weapons attached and they actually have to pick up weapons.
Right.
There's something about that kind of pulpiness that I find to be like that really kind of triggers me as a nerd.
Oh, it's a total ripoff of Pat Labor, which is an anime from like the late 80s, where it's police officers in these giant mechs, and the mechs have like just large sizes of conventional weapons.
Yeah, I think that I love that. I love that the giant mech robots have giant knives. That's really funny and awesome. However, I don't think the story is not that compelling, and what makes that kind of worse is that with a not very compelling story, it's populated with not very compelling characters. And I really do think that is the reason why it's not celebrated. There's no, like, you have your main characters and you have all the supporting characters. They're all in place and they're all acting their hearts out. Sam Worthington, I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe he is. Is that? Probably. I know Zoe Saldana is. She's like Matt said, I think she's the best thing about the movie.
Oh, absolutely.
I think her performance really comes through in all of that mocap CGI stuff. More than anybody else. They tried to make it happen with Sigourney Weaver, and it just ends up scaring me because hers is the most uncanny valley out of all of them because they gave her like a real nose. Anyway, as I was saying, the character is not very compelling. There's not, and when I say that, you don't have to have compelling characters for a movie to work. But if you want to make Star Wars, which is what he was saying he was making, you need a Han Solo, a Chewbacca, an R2-D2, a C-3PO. You need May the Force be with you. You need help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. Like, there are components within these very celebrated movies that people can latch onto that keep it in the consciousness for years and years and years. Avatar has no. I don't think Avatar has any of those. And
yeah, I think some of Avatar's. I mean, obviously, ICU was something they were trying to go for.
Yeah.
Which,
I mean, come on, you're ripping off John Cena at that point, all right?
I will say that it is kind of interesting that the most memorable character for me in the movie is the villain.
Yeah.
I can't remember the actor's name who plays Colonel Quaritch.
Stephen Lang.
Stephen Lang is having the most fun in that movie.
Yeah, and I think that ties into, I think James Cameron just knows how to write that character because he's written in all of his movies.
Right.
He knows how to make a blue collar hard ass, and he knows how to make them interesting and compelling with just like with ease.
The guy's first line in the movie is, "Welcome to Pandora. If there's a hell, you might want to go there for some R&R."
Yeah. And in addition to that, I actually think, and this is actually kind of an unpopular opinion, I think Sigourney Weaver's character is just as interesting. I mean, she's up there. I think she's just as interesting, and I think that is because Sigourney Weaver and Stephen Lang's characters, those are two sides of James Cameron, right? The artist, it's like the scientist and the techie guy, or like the scientist and the military guy. Like That's been his bread and butter, like his entire career.
Well, and I will also say that there are a few things that are missing. That the director's cut adds some stuff in that I think brings a little bit of additional emotional layer, particularly Sigourney Weaver's character, because there's this, and with her relationship with RDA, is that
what's RDA?
RDA is the company that is mining the unobtainium.
Oh, okay.
It's
unobtainium.
I thought you were going to tell me what it actually stands for because I don't know what it is.
Oh, it stands. It stands for.
This is your moment to geek out. Flex.
Is it the research and development? No, what is it?
Really dumb association.
Thanks, man.
But they.
Hey guys, that's as creative as unobtainium. So back off.
But you get the sense that Sigourney Weaver and her team came because they're interested in learning about the planet and its culture and its life, and particularly with the fact that it's the only other, as far as we know in their world, the only other intelligent species in the world or in the universe that Earth has ever encountered. And so they've clearly gone to like do work with the Na'vi. And there's this story because in the part in the movie where they're doing that jungle survey, when Jake gets separated because the Thanatar attacks him, there's a bit that was edited out of the theatrical version where they go to visit this house that where Sigourney Weaver's character, who I can't remember her name anyway, she had a project where she was teaching the children of the Na'vi how to read, and Neytiri was there, and Neytiri had a sister that was there anyway. The RDA had destroyed something, and so there had been a couple of the Na'vi had gone after them, and so the RDA showed up and they shot like everyone, like killed like all the Na'vi in that school, and like only Neytiri and like Selu, the guy that she's like engaged to, like they're the only ones that like survived it or whatever, and that's why they're so pissed off at the RDA because they had actually killed like members of their tribe, not just like, oh, they're digging up our land. Like they had actually killed some people. And so there's this bit where Sigourney Weaver's character goes, and while they're doing some survey work, they go to that hut and she picks up like a couple of old books and there's a couple old photographs and she tells the story about what happened. And so it adds this tragic dimension that you get the sense that she really loves the Na'vi. And so like later in the movie, when they talk about Jake gets permission to let her avatar show up at Home Tree, that it's very important to her and it means something to her. It's just one of those things that it would have been nice if it had been left into the theatrical version.
I think so. I mean, that definitely helps with some motivation, and giving some like an emotional arc, I think, at least to that character. But I still think that overall, it's just, and this is going to make Matt laugh because we've been having this conversation for like 2 days about this. A critic who we will not name was talking about a movie that Matt and I liked, and he mentioned that it was very broad, and that really pissed me off, and it pissed him off too. And I'm watching Avatar, I'm like, oh wow, these characters are very broad. So yeah, and that's how I feel, and I feel like, and here's the thing, I don't want to believe that James Cameron just forgot how to write a character. I don't want to, or to make a comparison. He gave us Sarah Connor. He gave us the cooler version of Ripley. He gave us Hicks. Like he gave us what are other movies? The Terminator, the T-1000.
Sarah Connor.
Yeah, I thought I did say Sarah.
Did you say Connor?
Yeah, I said John Connor and Sarah Connor. I don't want to believe he just forgot on his baby. I think it was intentional. And I think it was because, a lot of people make the argument, even George Lucas has said this, about Star Wars. George Lucas has said that Luke Skywalker is not that compelling of a character, but that's on purpose because you're supposed to project yourself onto that character. Mm-hmm. Like he represents all of us. I don't know if I could take him at his word for saying that, but I could see it. And I could see James Cameron probably thinking that way about all the characters involved. Maybe not so much Cord. So I feel like he really loves that character. And Sigourney Weaver's character too. So I think the whole point of this was to immerse people. And I feel like that was, and people, like I said earlier, if you read a lot of reviews, people are complaining about like, there's a lot of negative space here. There's a lot of like locking off the camera here. If you watch the original Star Wars, and we've talked about this, Chuck, about technique in Star Wars.
Yeah.
In the first Star Wars, there's not much technique involved. The camera's locked off for most of the movie. Most of the technique is in the editing and the transitions and stuff.
Right.
And that's because like they had to worry about special effects. Like they had to worry about building the world around the camera. So they couldn't like get flashy with it. They couldn't spend much time with that aspect. I feel like that's kind of what's happening with Avatar. I kind of feel like it's deliberate. There is a lot of negative space. There is a lot of what you would call like neutral filmmaking. But that is because I think he wanted the canvas to speak for itself.
Right.
You're supposed to be watching it in 3D. I watched it on my phone, which is like, he would probably hit me if I told him that. He would hit me.
Yeah, he would.
Please don't tell James Cameron that I watched Avatar on my phone. And it's all supposed to pop on its own, and it does. It did in the theater when I saw it. I thought it was beautiful. But so I feel like I'm just saying. I say that to say I don't think a lot of its shortcomings are an accident. Like I don't think he just like whoops forgot to develop this character. I think it was intentional. I think it was strategic. I think there was an end game involved. However, I don't think it caused it to last like the Abyss. And I think the Abyss suffers from the same problems Avatar does, in that there aren't very compelling characters. There's that one dude with the mouse,
right? Who actually that mouse actually breathes that liquid fluid. That is not simulated. That mouse is actually respirating that pink fluid in that movie.
That's insane.
Let me just say that, and Matt's going to really hate me for this, but this is this is the first film franchise since I was a teenager that I had any interest in, like, sort of like writing fan fiction about. But not like,
I can't wait. You got to put it on the site. Come on.
Not that kind. But
there's other kinds.
No, is because and this has got me thinking about something, and I've thought about this way too much, Matt, and that is, how do you evangelize the Na'vi?
You don't have to, man.
And they
just upload their souls to the trees. They're covered. Just make sure those trees don't get
some evangelical Christian has snuck on an RDA ship at some point and brought like a Bible with them and has tried to do this. It's happened. So what does that method look like? And what do you do theologically with the fact that like their God is actually like this like energy field that exists in this neural net that connects everything on the planet? He's just staring at me.
I don't.
I have to ride in a car with this guy for like 5 hours today. And this is what he's going to be talking about the whole time.
No. I'll just be quizzing you on the Na'vi names of all the animals. What's the Na'vi name for a banshee? Come on, Matt.
Tuck and roll.
Is it Kari?
Ikran.
Please make it stop.
It is also there is also another type of there's the forest banshee, which you only see briefly in the movie. They're not rideable. They're a little smaller. But then there is sort of the apex predator of the banshees species, which is what is that one, JP?
How do I turn this microphone off?
Turok the dinosaur hunter.
Nice. Toruk.
Oh, that's right.
Scientifically also known as the Great Leonopteryx. I'm telling you, bro. I'm in it deep.
And I don't blame you, Chuck. Like this. I mean, I don't blame you. But it's just like
he blames me.
I blame him.
I just think that like there are things that happen in the script that's like, he just doesn't do this in other movies. Like just the fact that we're talking about, I mean, Turok the dinosaur hunter. When he does decide to capture him and bring him into battle.
Right. Turok Ika, yes.
Yeah. His whole explanation, his whole plan is totally just expository, like a voiceover, which like has every screenwriter going, no, you can't do that, or like you shouldn't do that, or that's not a good principle. But like it is kind of funny. Like he's like, he doesn't look up, so I'm just gonna fly above.
Yeah, that was This is supposed to be the most pivotal act done in this civilization's history, since it's only been done 5 times. In case you missed it, the subtle foreshadowing of it's only happened 5 times. Yeah, you think our main character is going to ride it?
And the first time it ever happened, they have a Cirque du Soleil program show about. I kid you not.
I know about the Cirque du Soleil show. A podcast I listened to actually visited and did an episode about it.
So it's supposed to be the pivotal moment of this film, the thing that is going to unite two worlds, two completely separate groups of people, every tribe on that planet, plus the humans who actually care about them. Peoples. It's going to draw them all together, and we go, I'm going to jump on him from above. Cut to him landing on it. Like it landing in the middle of the people and everybody bowing to him.
I know how to fix this.
What?
I know how to fix this. See, he should have. You know what? If he wants to fill in all the negative space in the plot, he should just hire me. I should write the sequels.
Not to mention
that bit about his kids. That's genius. Let me tell you how he could have fixed this.
Fix it.
There should have been a running joke throughout the whole movie.
They should have spent the money on something other than this film. Go ahead.
Between Jake Sully, who's the other warrior guy?
Sule.
There should have been a running joke between Jake Sully and Sule. And Jake is like, "Hey, Sule, do you ever notice that these banshees can't look up?" And Sule's like, "That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. Of course they can look up." And then Neytiri can be like, well, like you've never noticed, like you pay attention enough to banshees for that they look up. I mean, it's a joke different for Shaun of the Dead, but bear with me. So he finally catches the banshee and he comes out and say, "Hey, Surak, check it out. It didn't look up."
Your comment about that kind of makes me think of the movie Pitch Black, where there's that one throwaway scene in Pitch Black where Riddick approaches one of the dead creatures, and he's like because it's got one of the hammerhead eye things fell off of it, and he puts it together and he goes blind spot. And that he figures out and then later that pays off in a scene where he manages to position himself in the blind spot of the monster.
This movie is entirely what is the word? Predicated on the assumption that this planet is sustained by people joining together and like bonding with each other and creation and the planet around it. And lines are given. I would say like speeches are made, but that's not true. Single lines are given about, how you ride something is you connect with it and become one with it. And how you save this planet is you connect with it and become one with it. How he's going to save everybody is by connecting with this one massive thing that everybody's afraid of and becoming one with it so that they can work together in unity. And yet this movie does nothing at all to make me care about their attempts at connecting with each other. And what I mean by that is when he picks out the first flying thingy, tell me the names. The Banshee, they call it. Yeah. What do they?
Ekron.
That dude. There's this big thing given about how you have to choose it and it has to choose you. How is it going to choose me? It chooses
you.
How do I know it chooses me? It's going to try and kill you. And then it's this stupid little really quick fight scene. He plugs into it and it's done. There's no there needs to be some kind of way of cinematically and story-wise showing me the effort involved in communicating with each other. Like the scene with the giant flying thing doesn't even need to be some massive, really cool special effects fight in the sky. How about some kind of moment where we see the character have to actually relate to this thing? He plugs into it and there's something that shows that, I don't know how you do it, but this is why I'm not the filmmaker, but something that shows the difficulty in connecting with another creature. Something that shows that the reason this thing has only been ridden 5 times is not because people are afraid of it, but because nobody's taken the time to actually connect with it and become one with it and to show I'm here to save this planet. You're here as a part of this. We're all one. Let's work together to make this a place where we can all live in harmony. That's the message to the movie, but the movie does nothing to give that message. What the movie does is this planet will join together to kill all you bad peoples and throw you off of me. Instead of this planet is all about unity and showing how connecting and becoming one is how the universe is made whole and saved. because that's his message. That's not what the film portrays. It just portrays it portrays redemptive violence. That's what the film portrays. We'll fight you, we'll win, and our God itself will finally choose a side and fight. That is the ending message of the planet heard you. It's gonna kill him too. Yay!
Well, I mean, Awa is an anagram of Yahweh.
Yeah,
and like,
oh god.
My point.
That's what Yahweh does in the Bible.
Guys, Cameron did with this movie, Mr. I don't believe in religion, did with this movie what the church has done with the gospel, and we've turned it into nothing more than a story of redemptive violence where I will fight you, you will fight me, and my God's on my side, so we're going to win. Instead of talking about how unity and working together and connecting with one another and God being part of, I came down and became human so I can show you how to be human and connect, is what the point is. And this movie misses it too. But hey, he has a cool big knife with his robot.
I do. I mean, I kind of agree, because I did say I love the idea of Awa and all the scenes involving Awa and how they, and their relationship with it. I do kind of feel like most of its payoff is toward the end involving Jake Sully. I do think there should have been more exploring that relationship and kind of fleshing out theme and things like that. But can I have just a quick aside? Apparently, Steven Spielberg saw Avatar when it came out, and the story is, and if you hear other Steven Spielberg rumors, it pretty much checks out. Apparently, the part where Neytiri says, Awa heard you, and she screams, Awa heard you.
Yeah.
Apparently, Steven Spielberg stood up in his chair and started applauding and cheering.
So anyways,
Steven Spielberg is a dork. There's lots of stories like that. Like, apparently he watched Paranormal Activity and he brought it back to the production company wrapped in a plastic bag and said, just get this thing away from me. Like, he's such a dork. Like, he gets really into movies. That's why he's Steven Spielberg.
Go ahead, Matt.
No, because I'm trying to wrap it up at this point. So say what you need to say.
Oh, I was just gonna talk about that. I still don't understand how day and night works in that planet. Because when is Jake sleeping? Because they indicate that he's sleeping, but it's a moon. It ain't that big.
And there, yeah.
Well,
it must be on the other side.
Well, he's not on the other side. He's just a few miles
right
away.
There when they show up. Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I feel bad for
the nerd guy who spent his whole life trying to work with them, and then
that would have been a really good character. Yeah. I think that character should have been more fleshed out.
Oh yeah,
I mean, could you imagine Michelle Rodriguez's character? If
any character, any character should have been more fleshed out.
Can you imagine how much better the story would have been if we didn't know if we could trust her the whole movie? But from the moment we know, we know she's on our side.
Right. Yeah, she should have been a Han Solo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, I think he thought she was, and the
nerdy guy, he should have been C-3PO.
Yep.
Yeah.
But Chuck, let me ask you: Do you think Matt's being unfair to Avatar?
A little bit. I kind of think that Matt watched it. When he watched it for this episode, he watched it with the intent of where can I find stuff to get mad about the sake of the episode, because I need to be that person on this episode.
I watch it. I kid you not. I watch this movie going, I want to like it because you're so into it. It looks fun to be into it. That's why, I'm going to tell you guys now. After all the crap I just talked about it, Father Chuck and I are getting ready to go to Orlando to see Rob Bell. And I would give more than anything, if we had time, which we don't, to stop and go to the Avatar thing with him. I would love that. It would be awesome.
So
it would be the coolest thing on the face of the earth. And I'm telling you that right now. And I mean it, that this is a world I want to be excited about and interact with. It's what I want to do.
What's funny is, Matt, the way you feel about Chuck is how I feel about James Cameron. I think James Cameron loves this story. I think he loves it. I wish I saw what he saw, because he wants to dedicate the rest of his life making Avatar movies.
I wish I saw the movie you saw, Chuck. I really do. I want to see it, but I don't see it.
But that's also to say that I don't hate this movie. I get it. I understand it.
Yeah,
and I'm entertained by it.
My level. Sorry, my level of hatred is played up for the podcast, but my hatred is not played up for the podcast. What I mean by that is I legitimately do not like this movie, but I want to. On the podcast, it's played up as I hate it and I want nothing to ever do with it again. No, I'm desperately wanting him to make me care about this planet. That's what I'm hoping the second one does, because I want to care. I want to be a part of this immersive experience, and I want to go to the park and be like the 9-year-old kid, like blown away, like, oh my goodness, it's real, it's really here. I want to be that. I really do.
Okay, before we end it, I just need to know how you guys feel about the papyrus font. Good font to use.
Good font.
This joke, I just don't follow your guys' humor.
By the way, Flight of Passage is currently a 180-minute wait at Animal Kingdom.
Good Lord.
I would love to go there with you. It would be a blast.
Isn't go ahead, Chuck.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, mention some things about that I know about Pandora. I follow this YouTuber. Her name is Jenny Nicholson. She's like a big Disney freak, and she's very cynical. She's very mean in her reviews, and sometimes I had to stop watching her videos. But she visited the world of Pandora, and even she was like, as much as I don't like Avatar, this park is amazing.
see, that's what I want, and that's why I really do want to go there with you. So, all joking aside, I want to go there with Father Chuck, and I want to care about this story. I really do. That's what makes me angry.
Here's the thing: is I think for me at this point, watching and caring about Avatar is supplementary to me going to the park.
Probably.
And so
you just do it so you can be going to the park.
Oh, I don't think. I 100% know. You went to that park. It like transported you to another place, and now this movie is like your
connection.
It's the equivalent, guys. It's the equivalent of me going to Europe, touring the whole place, like backpacking for 3.5 weeks, and coming back and showing you a 2.5-hour slideshow of my photos. To me, it's going to be the most compelling thing ever. To you, please don't show me another photo. Like, that's what Avatar has become to Father Chuck. It's a slideshow of his summer vacation.
Well, and it's funny to me that you were complaining about the whole scene where he's writing to Ikran. I can't remember the name of the ritual, but they because the Flight of Passage ride is that basically is you doing that rite of passage of flying the Banshee. Like, I watch the movie now and I'm like, I've done that. Like, there's just like. Like, I didn't fight the thing, but I've done that. And a lot of people have described going on that ride as a spiritual experience. And I agree with that. It's crazy. And so I think I will own up that I think that I see the movie in that light, and that I have a much more warm thing. Cause like, I feel like when I watch when I watch them like strip mine the planet, I feel that, because I'm like, I've been there, I've seen how pretty it is. Why would you do that?
So would you say what you're experiencing is that what is that called? That post Pandora depression or something, that urban legend that happened when the movie came out?
Oh, right. That thing was I don't know if it's a depression, but it is like it is. Well, let me tell you, JP, and I really want to go on that ride with you. I want to go with Matt too, but I really want to go with you because the first time I went on that ride.
Fine,
No, I'm going to explain why. Well, the first time I went on it, I stood in there and I looked at the design of everything, and I saw like the doors that lead you in, like, because the way the ride works is you go, the queue is you go up this long winding path, you go into these caves, and there's all these cave drawings of like riding the Toruk, and it ostensibly is like cave art about the first person to ride a Banshee and all this kind of stuff. And then you wind through that, and then suddenly you find yourself in an RDA facility that clearly at some point had been like blown open during like a conflict. Because like, Animal Kingdom has this whole sort of like everything's old and falling apart kind of feel to it. And so they maintain that with Pandora, and because you're there 100 years after the events of the movie. And but you walk through and it's this RDA facility that has been renovated. And because that's sort of the storyline of the park, is that there's this company called ACE, the Alpha Centauri Expeditions, that has come and taken over the RDA facilities to create this tourist program in order to help with the rebuilding of Pandora. It's like I'm standing in a James Cameron film. Like, it just felt like that. And I was like, and my first thought was, I need JP to be here. Like I need him to experience what it's like to stand in a James Cameron film.
That's kind of how I felt as a kid whenever I would go do the Terminator 2 3D Battle Across Time.
Yes, it has that feeling just being in the line.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, we should go, the three of us. We should.
I heard the river adventure is like horrible though.
I love it. The anime. I mean, it's boring, but it's pretty. It's so pretty. It's and the animatronic Shaman of Songs is incredible. It looks like an actual Na'vi is right there.
Well, guys, I think that's all the time we have for today.
Man,
that's more than enough time.
I want to talk more about evangelizing the Na'vi. I want to do that.
Chuck's going to go to Animal Kingdom and try to evangelize people.
They don't really have Na'vi there. I mean, I would just be talking to a robot.
All right. So, well, great. Thank you guys. I enjoyed it. I definitely saw a lot of the problems, and I think that there is a very specific reason why it's not celebrated. But I love that you love it, Chuck, and I think it's funny how put off Matt is in the movie.
What I wonder if Matt goes to the park and then he's like, oh, I'll check it out again, and then suddenly he's like, okay, I was wrong, guys.
he wears the Na'vi hoodie and everything.
I forgot to bring mine.
The movie might suck horribly, but I'm coming back with my own avatar. So whatever.
It's fun.
It's happening. So
oh, by the way, do you know how you can tell the difference between an actual Na'vi and a Skywalker, which is what they call, or a Dreamwalker, which is what they call the avatars in their world?
What do they call them? What?
Na'vi have 3 fingers. The avatars have 4.
Oh, and there's also Sigourney Weaver's nose.
That they also, I think eyebrows maybe are different, but they made a thing too. I remember when I went, they were just straight up when they like, the best thing is the people who do all this stuff are very much in character. And so when I was sitting for my figure, they were like, now just so you're aware, the Na'vi don't have beards, so yours will not have a beard. Like it was just very like, they don't have beards, but they could have blue eyes. Like, okay.
Guys, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank both Matt Wells and Father Chuck for coming out and watching Avatar.
You should thank me for watching it.
He froze. JP froze.
Or he gave up on us.
Or he.
Oh, now you froze. What's going on?
Perfect time for you to freeze.
Oh, he okay. You're unfrozen.
So are you. Okay. So Matt, thank you. Chuck, thank you.
Hi, Alove and Ewa Nagahu.
Oh my gosh, please help me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Join us again next week. Have a wonderful week. Good journey.
Good journey.
Good journey.